So, Acolyte review. Just real quick, this is episode 7. We've been reviewing this weekly here on the show, trying to make it as comical as possible. So, Acolyte episode 7 review, just real quick from my perspective. Leslie, the forehead Headland, said that she was trying to make a story about the Jedi and, about the Sith. And she was trying to make the Jedi out to sort of, question their motives. And it was about power and who could wield it and things like this. It's quite comical that in every single piece of PR, this is the narrative that she's spun, saying this is what we're writing about. This is what we're writing about. Because when you look at the show itself, fundamentally, it fails at that on every single level. I mean, the Jedi, every single one of their actions was completely justified in this episode. Actually, every single one of their actions were fully justified. Which I don't think that was what they meant to do, So Mother Anastasia, Lesbo witch bitch, gets in one of their heads. If she didn't do that, he probably wouldn't go psycho later in the episode and speed off at the prospect of going home. So she probably shouldn't have done that. She also probably shouldn't have disappeared like something out of a horror, disappeared into little dust. No one knows what you're doing, love. It's a heightened situation. It's a heightened scenario. And you're disappearing like out of a horror film. Did you not think someone was going to try, take that maybe as a threat? So she gets stabbed. That's her own fault. Pretty understandable, actually, to be fair. Master Soul, literally trying to save both of them, realizes he can only save one. So he goes to the one which isn't a psycho. The one which he hasn't seen trying to murder animals. That's justified as well, to be honest. Yeah, it was all pretty justified. Not quite understanding the story about the Sith either. Where are the Sith? This was a shit episode, obviously. That goes without saying. Every single time, these are terrible episodes. But from a narrative perspective, it fails on every single level as a show that they've sold it as. And secondly, it fails because we've got one episode left. If it's not at least 2 hours long, this series will not wrap itself up in any meaningful way which satisfies anyone at all. So this is a failure on every single level. It's $180 million that they've pissed up the wall. So that's my review. Hey, Bo, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, where to begin? Right, it's so dumb. It's so dumb. I mean, okay, so Leslie, the forehead Headland. Yeah, it's how you can spend that much money on this. It's sort of beggars belief. And yeah, one of the last points you just made, which had occurred to me, but I hadn't thought about saying it, but it hadn't sort of crossed my mind. But it's definitely a very, very good point. Is that I had thought, how is everything going to be wrapped up in a nice, neat little package with one episode to go? Well, it's just not, is it? There's loads of things are going to be left sort of unsaid or unexplained in a really annoying, frustrating way. I would have thought. I'm sure that will be the case. And my overriding sort of feeling for this episode was again, they failed to make you care one way or another, right? Because you can care in a bad way. That's still okay. Like, you hate a character, you want to see them get their comeuppance, or they're an anti-hero and they're a baddie, but you're still rooting for them, or they're just simply a hero, a goodie, and you're rooting for them in that straight up simple way. And if you feel indifference, if you're just indifferent to the characters, then the writing, the storytelling, the characterization, all those things have simply failed. And for me, that's what it is. There's not one character, not one, that I care about. Certainly these two little girls, are like, ugh. They're like sort of, right? I'm a middle-aged, cynical white dude, right? I don't care about the plight of these two little girls and what they're going to be, their potential, or anything like that. All the Jedi characters, like the Green Lady, like I don't buy her as a leader. And her weird camp sidekick dude, that twink.
Oh yeah.
Like, ugh, what is that? Ugh. No, thank you. And like the Japanese Jedi dude. Like, could you be more wishy-washy, grey, nothing, empty bag of a character. Right?
Technically Korean, but yeah.
Sorry, Korean. Okay, space Korean. And yeah, what other? Well, oh yeah, the coven of lesbian witches or whatever they are. It's like actually, I do feel something towards all those characters, and that is contempt. And it's not a good not in any sort of good way. It would be possible to have contempt for a character and it still make you want to know the arc of their story. Well, I don't care about them at all. And that's for that thing where she sort of starts disappearing into a black smoke, and then he just whips out his lightsaber and suddenly she's materialized and he stabbed her. It's just like what was that? Like it's just stupid. It's just really stupid. The whole thing's stupid. And what good? I don't want to get on my high horse too much, and I'll finish with this. But imagine what good you could do in this world with $180 million.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Imagine the dialysis machines you could build, or the water wells in the third world you could build, or whatever, or the number of homeless people in Philadelphia or San Francisco or whatever. You could save lives with that money. And no, they did this with it.
I know. Well,
disgusting.
We paid 25.5% of that back to them as well.
Right.
Because it was filmed here.
And,
so, yeah, good times.
And that's not even the real budget yet. We still won't know until Company's House has to do. They have to report to Company's House. So it's like, oh man. I was thinking, with that $180 million, you could pay Barbara Streisand's water bill at her estate. So, $180 million. Yeah.
Shots fired.
Well, what do you think? Get your review of it all.
Well, Bo hit the nail on the head. I mean, with you this is what you get in the penultimate episode, right? You have one episode to wrap it up, and this is, there's somebody said this, and everybody's going to be surprised who it was, but somebody said this, and they were correct. You can't finish this story, and even if it was set up for a second season, it ain't getting it because it is garbage-tasticness. It is terrible, right? They set up. The reason that I did the stinger the way I did is they set up Soul as a creeper. He's creeping on little girls.
Yeah, well, they kind of did and kind of didn't really.
No,
a little bit.
Well, I'd go one step further. This whole show to me sounds like and seems like it was more or less an allegory for trans kids' rights in some way. It surely seems to be that. I don't know. I don't give enough crap to really dig deep enough to find all the elements of that, but it just feels like it. And that's where I'm at with this thing.
It was creepy. It was uncomfortable. It was annoying. I don't understand why they did the show. I mean, I honestly don't. They might as well have. They could have done anything with the money, including setting it on fire. And they quite literally did that, and it's definitely more than $180 million. This is something where maybe her first script before Kathleen Kennedy told her to go back and write a different one was good. Maybe she wrote a good Star Wars thing. This is not a good Star Wars thing. This isn't even a good Netflix sci-fi series thing. This makes Jenny Down the Block, her Atlas film. It makes that look genius at times. It's that bad. This episode was the worst of them all. I mean, I thought it couldn't get worse. This will never get worse. I was wrong. And look, you can flash back. Nobody's motivation. Okay, that's been my primary complaint the whole time. Nobody keeps their motivations at all. They are literally, they have the memory of a gnat because they don't know why they are doing something at any point in time. And one of the things they tried to use to cover that up was the flashbacks. Is like, you make a linear show. There is no mystery here. The mystery is how the hell did they get this made? Why did somebody greenlight it? Yeah.
It did take them a while, though, to be fair. They had quite a long time. And they kept it hidden for quite a while as well. So
I do have an actual question, genuinely. Maybe I've missed something, because in, I think, episode 2 or 3, I wasn't watching it closely. I sort of couldn't bring myself to. So maybe I missed something, but I don't think I did. But genuine question here. other than just the space Korean dude, just feels like the goody little girl should be his Padawan. Beyond that, what or that the Jedi sort of fear that those little girls might be in some sort of danger. Why are they there? Why do they care at all? Has that ever been explained? In Britain, we have a thing. I think in America it's called something different, but we would call it the social services. You know, if the parents of a kid, like, it becomes clear to the neighbours or the community or whatever that they're abusing their kids or neglecting their kids, then social services are sent round, and eventually the state will take your kid away and put them into care. It feels like that's what the Jedis are in this. They're the social services randomly in space for two random girls.
It is kind of
what am I
explained. It's at least it's implied. It's
What is it?
implied why they're
What is
there.
it?
Yes. There's
What is it?
implications. It's never explicitly stated. But we learned this in this most recent episode where we saw everything, presumably from Saul's point of view, where we learn that the Jedi were on that planet in the first place because the Jedi elders or wise people have discovered a vergence of the Force. And there's something in that planet, because that whole part of space has been ruined by something happening in hyperspace, meaning there's been an environmental disaster which has ruined that whole part of space. But that one planet is thriving. So there's been a convergence in the Force. This planet has benefited from it. But what happened here? What is the nature of this convergence of the Force? This is why they are there, and why they are seemingly wandering aimlessly around with metal detectors looking for who the hell knows what. And then we learn that Sol, the Korean, he's desperate for an acolyte of his own. You know, a Padawan, someone that he can train. But Trinity mocks him because you're not mature enough for that. So, but still, he goes around. He's looking for trouble. He's just looking for some convergence. He don't even know what it is. It's just something. They probably recognize it when they see it. And then he sees the two kids in the clearing completely by chance. They're not even looking for them. But then he's probably thinking, oh, there's my acolytes. They're two girls. They look perfectly fine, but they must be in danger. I must go and I must look. They're witches. They must do something horrible to these children. They must be in extreme danger. There's no reason to think that they're in danger. There's no reason to think that anything's bad here. So then he goes and he convinces Trinity that they must be in danger and we must interfere, because obviously the Jedi are the social services when it comes to Force-sensitive children. Apparently, it's written in the law in this part of the galaxy that if someone is Force-sensitive, then the Jedi have a right to come and take that child. And that's kind of like what they're saying in the third episode, that but we have a right to at least test these kids with your permission, of course. So they're so generous, like, we have the right to take them, but we'll be generous and say, well, just allow us to do it. So what we're looking at here is honestly an abuse of power. I think that's part of the subtext here, because here you have law enforcement that goes there on some completely unrelated matters, and then they see something, and then they decide to just get involved without really thinking there's anything. They have no reason to think that something is bad. It's just the mildest of suspicions. In this case, it is Saul's desire for a Padawan all of his own. That's really what triggers it. And then the Jedi, they go on and they abuse their power. And then misunderstandings happen that end up killing all of these innocent witches. The more I think about it, the more this is a commentary on like law enforcement and social services in the US, and probably Leslie Headland's own personal experiences as well. That's the only thing I can get from this, because what we are looking at is abuse of power from the Jedi. That seems to be the commentary I get from it. I'm very happy to hear an alternate perspective, but I don't see what else it could be.
No, I give you an alternate. All of their motivations in this seem absolutely fine and justified. Nothing looked like an abuse of power at all. They're on the planet.
Okay,
They
what's
were
justified
minding their own
about
business.
deciding that these kids are in danger and we're going to go in and we're going to force
but
our way in here?
Well, no. So, but that wasn't what they did, though, was it? So, episode
it was.
7 wasn't that. No, it wasn't that at all. Episode 7 was all from Saul's perspective. Yet everything he saw did make it sound like they were in danger. May quite literally said to them, "We're going to be sacrificed." Did actually say that, right? So, yeah, from a Jedi's perspective, you're going to be like, "Sorry, what? A cult of witches? You're gonna fucking sacrifice? That's a bit weird." Okay, so.
Yeah, I grant you that. Yeah, I do grant you that.
So,
Yeah.
but they didn't rush in. They didn't rush in.
No, they knocked the door.
No, listen,
while they also decided to come in full
listen,
force and everything.
Listen, Torben got the blood test results and says, "This is what we've been looking for." That they're identical. They're literally the same. Because this is where it goes to being a trans allegory. They're literally the same being that has been split in two, right? So Torben runs off and Soul chases after him. So it's Torben that breaks in. It wasn't Master Soul. And Torben breaks in because the mother witch got inside his head and teased him about going home. It was the one thing he was desperate to do. She's the bloody reason that she died. She shouldn't have got inside his head. She shouldn't. I know it's framed as supposedly the Jedi are evil.
Well, and it's stupid because they already had the blood sample too. They didn't need any more proof.
No, but they were going to take the girls, weren't they? That's what Torben was.
Yeah, I know, and that's where I was saying like the trans, and I was kind of thinking like, yeah, the Jedi either represent like the church or something like that along that order. But yeah, anyway, go ahead.
It doesn't make them look bad. It doesn't make them look bad in any way, shape, or form because the Mother Anastasia shouldn't have got inside Torben's head. He wouldn't have then raced off, finally looking for his freedom to go home because he's desperate to go home. That wouldn't have happened. Mother Anastasia shouldn't have disappeared into thin air like some weird psycho demon, and then Soul wouldn't have murdered her. Also, side note, the other witch, the Darth Maul-looking mother, mofo, right? She was the one that was like, "Get mad, May. Get mad. Go do stuff." Anyone missing that? The fact that she did all of that as well. She's the reason why this girl went and started, became a little fire starter. I appreciate it's supposed to be framing the Jedi as evil, but they fundamentally fail on every single level because all of that, it looked perfectly fine to me. Everything they did looked perfectly fine to me.
Can I make a couple of quick points? I think Tom made a good point that it may well be an allegory for the sort of, at least in some way, the sort of the trans angle. I can totally see that. It's this idea that you can be whatever you want to be. Whatever you want to be inside your own head, whatever you identify as, you can be and you should be encouraged to be. I can totally see that angle. The other thing I wanted to say, again, because I'm up with my Star Wars lore, but not 100%. There's been one or two films I haven't seen and a fair bit of the TV.
You're probably much more up with the lore than the people writing this.
Yeah. But I wonder if I've missed something out. This concept of the virgins that they're talking about. I've never. What is that? Is that a completely new thing to the Acolyte? Because I've never really heard of that before.
Guys, do you know? I didn't know what that was.
Right, okay. It's not just me then. Okay, good.
Yeah, I think that Anakin Skywalker is that. That's like when the Force goes haywire and goes and creates life or something. Okay. I think it's something to do with that. I mean, Star Wars theory and everyone else who's really into Legends lore, they probably know about it. But I do believe that, as Disney is prone to do, they took a concept from Legends, meaning actual canon, and then they twisted and perverted it to their own means to subvert that canon. So I do believe that they have made some kind of changes to it, and this is something new that we haven't really seen before. It certainly makes Anakin less special. Grace Randolph broke this down in detail in one of her videos, which only goes to show that she obviously had the cheat sheet straight from Lucasfilm with detailing of the full canon and all that stuff, because there's no way that she would know the kind of details that she read up on that stuff there. So there is some kind of meaning behind it, and there is some kind of precedence for this somewhere in Star Wars. but they've changed it to their end.
Someone in the chat says that apparently Qui-Gon says that Anakin is a virgin in the Force.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're right, but I don't remember that line. But is that from episode 1? Is it or something? But,
I don't think that they maybe said the line in the movie.
right.
It would be
Okay.
something that would have been added in the novels or the
Right.
comics or something like that.
No,
at
I
a
don't
later
remember.
time.
I certainly don't remember that from episode 1 or anything. But
Well, it was a rubbish episode.
yeah.
I'm glad it's almost over.
And boring, right? I think any entertainment up to and including this stream, right? The cardinal sin is to be boring.
Mm.
You cannot be boring and expect to be good on any level. That's the baseline. Don't be boring, even if it's annoying or obnoxious. But this is, for big chunks of this, it's just boring. There you go.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. Any type of media like that is, it's downright offensive when it becomes boring.
I think there's another big crime here as well, because my view on this is that this shouldn't even be considered canon. This is just elaborate fan fiction, because the characters here, they have no life of their own. It's kind of like in episode 8 of Game of Thrones, where all of the characters felt alive. And then suddenly in season 8, they no longer had agency. They were suddenly prisoners of the goal of we have to rush towards the end of the series, and all kind of character development, experience, everything like that was thrown out the window so that the characters could just rush through these developments to get to the end of the story. Basically, all of the formerly live characters became NPCs. You catch my drift. I think that's what we're looking at here in this series. It's just a bunch of NPCs that are playing out their programming without having any kind of agency, because Leslie Headland and her staff of writers and directors are a bunch of incompetent, talentless hacks and various assorted DEI hires. And they have completely failed to create anything that has anything resembling verisimilitude, which is like, I appreciate this discussion on what this whole thing means, but the reason we're discussing it is because it doesn't make any sense. And this is not any kind of addition to Star Wars that anyone should take seriously. Like, this needs to be stricken from canon right away, because it only harms that canon.
Well, it won't.
We was talking.
I know, but
oh, sorry.
No, sorry. Carry on.
I was just saying, we've talked about how it looks like it's going to be impossible to wrap up, because sometimes that has been done, where a movie, let's say, or a TV series, but a movie or a novel or something, you're getting towards the end of it, and you think, how is this ever going to be wrapped up? And then they do it perfectly, and it's a little bit of magic. Thing that springs to mind for me is The Usual Suspects, perhaps. Like the last few minutes, suddenly you realize you've been in the hands of a storytelling master. That's not going to happen here, is it?
No,
that's not. I would bet my mortgage that the last episode doesn't wrap everything up in a genius way. It's just not going to happen.
No, there'll be nothing like that there.
No.
We've got some super chats here to get to quickly. So, Many Dragon has given his membership super chat here. Says, I haven't watched the episode or the show at all. Good. You're better off. You've got more brain cells for it. So good. But when the head witch was turning to dust, wasn't one of the girls turning to dust too? Yeah, she was. Yeah. So again, like, the Jedi would probably be like, oh my God, what are you doing? Stab, stab. Like, yeah, that's perfectly reasonable, logical train of thought, given the scenario. Yeah. Taker 610 super chat $2 says Anakin was a virgin in the Force before Padme. See what you did there, bud. See what you did there. We've got a super chat over on Streamlabs from Chaos is Fun for $3. Says, let's be fair, she wrote what she knew. Hollywood, incoherent tales of relocating unconscious women, adults having an unhealthy view of kids and trying to kidnap them, and weird Masonic groups manipulating folks to use them for their own agenda.
That's on the nose.
It's pretty fair.
Yeah.
I'd say that's pretty damn fair. Well, there you go. There is our review of episode 7 of The Acolyte. Next week will be the end.
Thanks.
Next week will be the end. It'll be our final review. And then we'll be on to Lord of the Rings, guys. So,
That was the critic,
hey.
the John Lovitz critic. It stinks.
Okay.
That's what he always said about everything. Yeah.
It's the final countdown.
Yeah, it is soon. All right, so we're going to move on to something fun.